Hey, I'm Josh from Independent Drum Lab, and I'm very excited to share that we are now able to do our patented Infinite Snare Bed design on wooden snares. We introduced the Infinite Snare Bed about 2 years ago on our Great Lakes Drum Co. product line, and then introduced it onto the Kalamazoo series metal snare drums. But up until now, we haven't been able to put that design on a wood snare drum. So we've created a new machine that'll cut those snare beds, and now we're able to offer that awesome technology on the wood snares. So what is the Infinite Snare Bed? On a conventional snare bed design, the entire bottom of the drum is in the same plane, completely level, with then a cutout on each end of the snare drum where the snares go across to allow the head to curve as it goes across the drum. And this is important to keep the snare wires from buzzing as you're playing. Now, this concept has been in use for hundreds of years. The problem is that once we started to use Mylar for drum heads, I've got here a sheet of Mylar. Mylar bends really nicely in one direction, but as soon as you start trying to bend it into a compound curve, you get wrinkles. And that's why you often will see as you're tuning up your drum that you'll get wrinkles around the snare bed area. Now, this drum was built with a conventional snare bed, and this is basically the design that we've used on every maple snare drum that we've made in the history of Independent Drum Lab. It's a pretty shallow, pretty gradual bed. They tune up pretty easily, but they do have to be cranked to a certain tension to get those wrinkles out. This is the Infinite Snare Bed drum, which consists of one continuous curve all the way around. If you look at the snare drum this way, basically the whole bottom edge curves like this. If you look at it this way, the whole edge curves like this. So that makes it so when we put a piece of Mylar on, it's already with no tension at all, touching evenly all around the entire head. Whereas on this drum, it's sitting flat everywhere except those snare beds, and it sits a little bit off of there. And then when you tension the drum, you have to crank it to a certain tension to stretch that head to fit that compound curve. On the Infinite Snare Bed drum, as soon as we put that Mylar on, it's already seated all the way around the drum. So that means you can basically make it finger tight, that head will resonate, and it allows you to use lower tunings that you can't with any other drum. The other big benefit is that on a conventional snare bed design, it really has to work well with the wires that you're putting on it. Meaning if you have a narrow snare bed, you can't put a 42-strand snare wire on there. It just won't fit the curve of the head. On the Infinite Snare Bed design, you could put narrow snares, wide snares, anything will fit, because essentially the entire bottom of the head is one continuous curve all the way across. So I want to show you the difference between tuning an Infinite Snare Bed snare side head and a conventional snare bed snare side head. Okay, so the heads are loose now. We're going to bring these up to finger tight. So these two snare drums are at an equal tension from using the shaft at the bottom of the drum keys, basically as tight as I could get them just using my fingers. So the Infinite Snare Bed is already at a tension where it's resonating. The conventional snare bed drum does not resonate yet, and that's because basically there's an uneven tension across the head. The head's not seated across the snare beds. You can see there's wrinkles, and it's really just floppy right there. Whereas the Infinite Snare Bed head is even tension all the way around. So with this drum, you can put snares on and you can start playing, and it'll give you some really unique tones. This drum, we're going to have to crank quite a bit more before the head's even seated. Now I'll give you a quick demo of this snare drum and a whole variety of tuning ranges.